Hey guys, I am back with my 1 month update. With little Donny here. I'm going to talk about Donny's first month of life, and I'm also going to touch on my experience postpartum at the 1 month mark. So if you missed my delivery story, I shared all about my positive feedback birth, which I feel so blessed to have been able to have. I will throw that up in a card for you if you want to check it out. And yeah, that went really well. So Donny was born on January 30th. We were encouraged to spend a couple of additional nights in the hospital. We spent the one night, obviously, where I was in labor in the hospital, and then my doctor really wanted us to spend another 2 nights, so we did. And we went home on Thursday, February 1st, which happened to be my husband Don's birthday. If you're wondering, I've been getting lots of questions. Yes, Donny is named after Don. It is a nickname. Donny isn't his legal name, it's a nickname. He's named after his father. This was very important to Don. If you know Don, and somebody I don't know is calling me. Don't you hate it? Like, all of a sudden, I'm getting all of these random calls on my cell phone. Didn't they, like, release our numbers or something? I thought I read an article about how cell phone numbers were released to the telemarketers. Whatever. That's not what this video is about. I apologize, you guys, too, if it, like, I don't know what kind of lighting or situation's going on here with the filming. I just have my little vlogging camera set up, no professional lights, and I know it's really backlit because of the way the sun is, and I don't have a light on my face. But this is how I can film, so I'm going to do it. Anyway, if you know Don in person, he is very bright and very, very opinionated and passionate about things having to do with his work in finance, and also just in general about kind of like really big picture stuff. He really, really is a space cadet and oblivious to anything like down, close to earth, I would say, kind of like daily things. Like, he really, if I didn't tell him we redid the kitchen, like we were going to redo the kitchen, he might not have actually noticed for a while. Even though I completely overhauled it. I'll link that too if you guys want to see it. Like, that's the kind, he's just like, he's a brain, he's like all in his head. He's not on the earth at all. And he just doesn't have strong opinions. Like, he doesn't care about anything I do at the house, or, kind of day-to-day stuff, or like what we eat, or where we go on vacation. Like, he really doesn't have an opinion. He does not care. He's the kind of person who doesn't like care if you give him a present or not, or if you remember it's his birthday. Like, of course I remember when his birthday is, but he just doesn't care about that stuff. We definitely collaborated on naming Charlotte, but I definitely kind of won that. He didn't really have any standalone opinions, but Charlotte is named after my grandmother, so that's a family name. It was important to me to include a family name if we could, and honor my late grandmother in that way. So when I was asking Daddy Don, about if he had an opinion about this one's name, and he's like, yes, I'd like him to have the family name. And he was very, very firm on that. And I just, he actually has an opinion on something like this. I'm like, of course, we'll do it. So that's why Donny is named Donny. Now, as he gets older, if he wants to go by something else, by his initials or by his middle name or whatever, he can pick that. We're just calling him that for now because I was allowed to pick the nickname because, the name was already set in stone. I just felt like that kind of suited a baby. But I feel like I don't know a lot about Donny's personality yet, but what I do know from the past month is that generally the one thing that stands out to me is very serious. And I feel like his middle name might end up suiting him really well when he's a little bit older. But we're in that bridge when we get there, and we'll let him decide, Anyway, that's why Donny's named Donny, if you're wondering. Anyway, so we brought Donny home on Don's birthday on February 1st, And I've gotten lots of questions on how both Charlotte, our youngest, who goes by Cece, and our dog Winnie, who is an almost 9-year-old Shih Tzu, reacted to Donny. And I will insert a little picture of Charlotte holding Donny. She's been very, very sweet towards him. She has not been very hands-on with him. She like doesn't want to get too close. I don't know, she's like not a little afraid, but just a little timid about him, but she's been very sweet about it. She asks about him constantly. She talks about him constantly. Where's Donny? Donny's my little brother. Is Donny sleeping? Is Donny crying? Is Donny hungry? Like, she's very concerned and interested in him and very sweet towards him. Hasn't shown any sort of negative emotion towards him at all. But she has, I wouldn't say acted out, but she's definitely been pushing the boundaries more than she usually does with us. And also she's 2, so that's kind of a typical part of this age, as they start asserting their independence and kind of pushing the boundaries and seeing where their footing is as like their own beings now that they're like totally out of the baby stage. So that kind of coincided with this as well, with, you know, Donny coming into our family. Anyway, she's just been, I would say, extra whiny. She's not usually a very whiny child. Like, she's very, very easygoing, like very sensitive for sure. But she doesn't whine a whole lot. She hasn't historically, and she's definitely been, I mean, you can tell when a kid is like faking it, especially as their parent. And she's been doing she did a lot of faking it, not for the first week, but for like the middle 2 weeks. But then over the past week, the 4th week, I would say she has definitely been a lot less of that. So I think she's adjusting really well, and she seems to be doing great. So I have a feeling as he gets older and more able to interact with her and stuff, that it will just be more interesting for her, you know, to be able to actually like play with him and stuff. But for now, we're still kind of settling in. She's still getting used to the idea of him and sharing mommy with him. I think that's been kind of the hardest part for her, is because she was a total mama's girl. But I am so happy that Don has been so great about taking time away from work. He spent the whole first month basically home with us, which was amazing. Not what I expect. I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of afraid to ask. But he, you know, he can work a little, whoa, it just got really bright. You guys, I'm so sorry about the lighting. This is the best I could do. Anyway, he can work from home a little bit, but it's better for him to go into the office. But he's been home with us, and he's just been so hands-on with Charlotte, despite being in quite a bit of pain. He has a very serious back issue and now a shoulder injury as well. He needs 2 surgeries, which are coming up very soon. The poor guy, and he's just been probably doing, I mean, I keep telling him, don't pick her up, don't throw her around, don't do that. And he can't help it. She's got him wrapped around her little pinky, I should say. Hi, Prince. Hi. Are you waking up? Is mommy waking you up with her incessant talking? Well, let's not FaceTime. Oh, he's very gassy, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you'll probably hear him grunting like this now and then in the video. Anyway, where was I? Anyway, what's been wonderful about Don being home more and being really hands-on with Charlotte, because he's been very busy with work. He really isn't home much at all during the week, and even on the weekends he's working, and he's not fully focused all of the time on, you know, he's got a lot of his focus on work. Their relationship has just blossomed and grown so much deeper, and that has been such a joy to watch. It's a little bittersweet. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not like a little bit sad to have lost that super like glued at the hip all the time like relationship I had with Charlotte before Donny was born, but I knew it couldn't last with 2 in the house, because I need, you know, he needs me too, and I need him too, and so we're learning how to adjust to that. But it's been such a beautiful thing to watch, and it makes me so mushy and emotional just watching the Don and Cece together, and how sweet it is. And I'm so happy that they have that bond now. That's, you know, so that's a bit amazing. So anyway, we were home. So before we left the hospital, they tested his jaundice level and it was like borderline. And my pediatrician was like, why don't you go home, come back to the doctor's office, not the hospital, but the office on Saturday morning. We'll test it again just to make sure. As long as it doesn't go up, it's fine. If it does, we might, you know, check you into the hospital to do some lights. And jaundice is, if you're not familiar, is just when the bilirubin in the system, which is generally processed by your liver, but apparently a newborn's liver doesn't really kick in until day 5. Those levels get a little too high, and they can create, you know, kind of a yellowish tone to the skin and even the whites of the eyes. And what happens is, if it gets into dangerous high numbers, it can actually lead to brain damage. So it's quite serious. You have to take it seriously. It's very common. Something like 60% of babies are jaundiced within the first few days of life. But usually once the liver kicks in on day 5, that number goes down and it's okay. So we had our first night at home. We've had our first couple nights at home, and I'll talk about his like sleeping. And I mean, newborn sleep, it's, you know, he slept for maybe like an hour and then he'd get up and want to eat for a while. He's been a very, very slow eater, just like Charlotte was. He takes 30 to 40 minutes at the breast. He likes to eat from both sides most of the time. And he has been eating every 2 hours, kind of like clockwork, and sometimes even more frequently than that, until this week, basically, until a few days ago. And I'm actually posting this video a week after I film it, so I apologize for the delay, but I have to kind of stack up some of my videos so I don't get too behind. But he started stretching to closer to 3 hours between feedings some of the time this week. Now we're on week 4 to 5, right? Anyway, so yeah, I'm like all over the place with this. Anyway, we went back to the pediatrician Saturday morning. They tested him and his numbers had shot way up, and I knew they had because on Friday, I mean, he was practically Oompa Loompa colored. I mean, I knew something was up, but the doctor told me not to worry, not to panic, just to come in Saturday, and as long as he was eating and producing good wet and dirty diapers and sleeping okay, that not to worry. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna worry. But his numbers shot up, but they were still, like, the pediatrician was like, well, it's still borderline. It could go down on its own tomorrow when he's 5 days old. This was now Sunday, 5 days after he was born, and his liver kicks in. It could go down. So what they asked me to do, because they don't want to check you into the hospital unnecessarily. It's stressful for you. It's you know, it's expensive. It's unnecessary. Whatever, if it's unnecessary. So they asked me to come back on Sunday. Now the doctor's office was not able to run the test on Sunday, so they actually had me go to the ER with him. Not because it was an emergency, but because that's the only place where there was a lab available to run the test. Are you okay, my love? Are you alright? Anyway, so we go to the ER as soon as we can Sunday morning. I think the earliest we could go was 9, just based on the order of the test. And they did the test there. The staff at the ER was so sweet. They were lovely. And we had our own little room, me and Donny, that we were in. My husband Don was with Charlotte this whole time. So, you know, obviously we weren't going to bring her to the hospital. You're not supposed to bring children to the hospital unnecessarily anyway, especially with this flu season. I got questions about that. Charlotte was not allowed to visit us in the hospital because of a flu protocol they had in place where no children under the age of 18 were allowed to visit at all. Another reason I was grateful to only be there 2 days and not longer with it, like if I had had to have a C-section. Oh, I'm so grateful to have a vaginal delivery. I'll talk about that at the end. Anyway, so we were at the ER. I feel like we were there forever, but we finally got the test results back and the numbers had gone up again. So they checked us in right away. We went right up to the pediatrics ward where they have like mother in residence rooms where they have a bed, you know, an extra bed. Obviously Donny doesn't need a bed because he's an infant, but they had a place to wheel in an incubator with the phototherapy lights. And I'll insert a couple of pictures of him just chilling out because he really liked that incubator. Like, he had not been sleeping very well. He had been eating great and producing wet and dirty diapers and doing fine in that. But he was just like very fussy and gassy and just not sleeping well. He slept non-stop in that incubator. So basically he just like hung out in the incubator, and they're like, we're gonna definitely keep you overnight. We'll check his levels again at night and then again in the morning. The poor little boy had his heel pricked like 5 times in 2 days or 3 days, but he was a champ about it. By Sunday night, his levels had, so we spent the whole day, you know, doing that, and basically I had to keep him in the lights, under the lights in the incubator thingy, all the time unless he was nursing, at which point I could take him out, change his diaper, and I was only allowed to nurse him 10 minutes per side and then put him right back in. And in between that, I was encouraged to pump and then top him off with a bottle, because the point of being there was to have him under the lights as much as possible. And they put this little like funny mask on him to protect his eyes. The lights don't hurt your eyes. They're not actually UV lights, but they can dry them out. So he had this little mask on. He loved it there. But I was like an anxious wreck the whole time. It was just like, is he okay? What's going on? Fortunately for us, by the evening, his numbers had dropped. So they were getting lower, which was good, his bilirubin numbers. Also, a cool thing, they have this like Billy blanket, they call it, that has the phototherapy lights. So they put that underneath him. It's basically a pad, it's not really a blanket. They call it a Billy blanket. And they had the lights overhead. So he was getting the lights from all sides at all times. And when I nursed him, I could actually bring him out with the Billy blanket. So he was still on the lights even when he was nursing. He just wasn't completely under them. So they checked again kind of mid-morning, and he was way down, much, much better. And I was we were able to go home. So we were discharged about midday, and we went home, and we haven't had an issue since. He's still, I think, just a little tiny bit yellow in tone. I don't know if it's his skin tone. Charlotte was more olivey undertone too, like me. But Donnie's a little bit fairer in his in his hair features. Like, he has blonde eyebrows and blonde eyelashes and kind of blondish hair. So I don't know if he's going to be more pink undertones like Dawn is, or kind of paler, or more olivey undertones like I am. And Charlotte is definitely more olivey undertones. We'll see. He might still be just a little bit yellow, and the whites of his eyes are significantly less yellow now than they were then. They're definitely improving. My pediatrician said that could last several weeks and not to worry. And basically that they would not test him for jaundice again after that point, because his liver was in full functioning force by then, and basically they don't worry about it at that point. And as long as he was eating and sleeping and producing wet and dirty diapers, not to worry. So that was that. And we actually went back to the doctor just a couple days later for his 1-week checkup, and she said he looked great and was pleased with his weight gain and all of that. So Donnie was 6 pounds 14 ounces at birth. He dropped to 6'6" by discharge day. Do you want to go here? We're grunting. And then he gained, I think by 2 weeks, he was up a whole pound. And, no, by 3 weeks. By 2 weeks, he was up back to his birth weight. And by 3 weeks, he was up a whole pound. And then I weighed him at 4 weeks, and he weighed 8 pounds, 10 ounces. I actually have an infant scale at home. It wasn't very expensive. I bought it on Amazon. If I can find it, I'll link it below. I could really recommend this. Having one of these if you are a worrywart like me, or if you have an infant who has any issues in the beginning of stages of life. I bought this when I had Charlotte as a newborn, because we had so much trouble with the latch and breastfeeding, and I needed to weigh her to make sure she was gaining. And I just find it interesting, and I weighed her for her whole year of life, like every month. And I plan to do the same with Donnie, because it's just fun, and you don't have to wait for the doctor's appointments then. So I love being able to weigh him at home, and it's very accurate. It's synced up. It's like the same readings as our doctor's scale. Anyway, so he's gaining beautifully. Breastfeeding has been night and day with this one as compared to Charlotte. He got the latch right away. He was a smaller baby. I feel like he doesn't I feel like as he gets bigger, the latch will improve. He tends to kind of suck in my nipple instead of allow me to kind of just shove the whole thing in his mouth. But to be honest, in his defense, my breast is so much bigger than his head, and his little mouth is just like overwhelmed by it, I think. But it hasn't been an issue, really. He's been obviously eating well. He's been gaining beautifully. And it was, you know, the first week I was pretty raw, but I knew how to take care of my nipples this time. I used this homemade concoction that I used when I, you know, in the early months with Charlotte when we were battling with thrush. That is coconut oil and a little bit of grapefruit seed extract. I have a whole blog post about dealing with thrush, which I will throw in a link for you as well, and I'll put in the description bar if you guys aren't curious, because I get a lot of questions about that. Not a lot, but occasionally I get questions about that because I dealt with thrush with her for 10 long weeks. And in the end, it was the at-home, like, you know, natural remedies that kicked it. But anyway, that is just great for my nipples. It heals them up so fast. So I had cracked nipples for maybe like a hot minute, like a day in the hospital. And then by the time we got home, you know, even when we were still in the hospital after his birth, by the time we got home, they were fine because I brought that concoction with me. I don't use Lanasoap ointment or whatever that stuff is called. I don't use anything else, my own ointment, and I actually use that as a barrier cream, as a diaper. Oof, are you all right? Oh, on Donny as well, which works great. Anyway, oh, where are you going? Oh boy, little one. Today is like the most he slept in his entire life, I swear. Yeah, so breastfeeding's been going well. I only was really uncomfortable in the, you know, with kind of nipple discomfort for the first week, and then it's been fine. He eats well. Like I said, he's a kind of a slow eater, but we'll see. Maybe that'll pick up as he gets bigger. It never did with Charlotte. She always loved taking her time at the breast, so it might just be what my children do. He has not been the best sleeper. I don't know if any of you have heard of grunting baby syndrome. I had not heard of this, but this was something my sister-in-law figured out with her second, my nephew Theo, who just had, I guess a lot of babies have this, just have some trouble, like some extra trouble passing bowel movements for the first month or two of life, and they end up grunting a lot. Like you'd think they're not colicky, they're not crying, but they're grunting, and you can tell they're uncomfortable. They wiggle around, they get all red, and they just, while they can produce bowel movements, it's very difficult for them to get them out. And Donnie's like that too, and it took me a couple weeks to kind of figure it out. At first I thought, I wasn't sure if it was just him, I don't know, but I definitely figured it out finally a couple weeks in, that he was also grunting because of just difficulty passing gas and bowel movements and stuff. Learning how to burp him has been, you know, really important. I could never, ever, ever get to Charlotte to burp. She had silent reflux. It was really difficult to burp her. I tried everything under the sun. With Donnie, he doesn't have reflux like she did. He may have like a very small touch of it, and I can just tell by, you can listen to the way that they, like the swallowing happens. You can kind of just tell when something's going down the wrong pipe. And he does that occasionally, but not at all like Charlotte did. But burping him is really important, and luckily he's been getting much easier to burp in the last week. It's just been hard to figure out like the right position that he prefers, but he really just prefers being up on my shoulder, and then I do keep him upright after each feed for probably about 10 minutes just to make sure, before putting him down or even like holding him lower in my arms, you know, kind of cradling him or what have you. So he's a grunter, and he just has not been a great sleeper, and I think a lot of that is because of discomfort due to intestinal issues. And I just feel like that's something he's going to grow out of. I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach to it. We'll be at our pediatrician in a few days. Actually, by the time this video goes up, we'll already have gone for his 1-month checkup, and I'll talk to her about it then, but I'm not concerned. He's eating well, he's gaining beautifully. He's producing you know, a good number of diapers, so I'm not worried about that. I do think it's just something he's going to grow out of. Some people, you know, do kind of at-home treatments for it, which some people might not agree with. You can Google it if you're curious, but I just feel like he produces enough diapers. Sometimes the best thing I found actually when he's having a real issue, and if I can catch it just right, is I will kind of hold him with his legs tucked up, not like frog leg like he is now, really comfortable, but kind of almost more in towards his abdomen, and I'll just hold him like that a little bit on an incline away from me, even up against the boppy for, you know, like a few minutes, and that will kind of help move things along. It's almost like an assisted squat, if you will. And if you've ever had an issue pooping, we're going to talk about poop for a second, you know that squatting is really conducive to moving things along. I know, mommy's so chatty, I know. Oh. Anyway, I don't want this video to be forever long. The sleeping hasn't been awesome, but he slept a lot today, so I don't know, maybe we're turning a corner. I'm up with him like 2 to 3 times a night. He actually sleeps better at night. It took him a couple weeks to figure out the night-day flip. Charlotte figured that out right away. Like, she knew it was night when it was night. It took him about 2 weeks, and then he figured it out. So he does sleep more at night and more consistently, but I get up 2 to 3 times with him to feed. I'm probably sleeping anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a night, obviously not all at once, but in 2 to 3 clumps, which has been fine. I was pretty much a zombie the first 2 weeks, and I've been progressively feeling a little bit better as he's been getting bigger and able to go a little bit longer between feeds too. Just getting like at least 2 hours in a sitting helps me a lot. Feel better. I still am very tired, but it's coming along. But his daytime sleeping has just been rubbish, and I think it's been because he's so uncomfortable, but we're still learning each other, we're still figuring each other out, and he's still very, very new. So I know these things will, you know, unfold, and we will find a way. And I feel like, you know, he's still too young to put on a schedule, but I would like to start kind of nudging him towards a schedule, probably around 3 months old. It will just help so much having a 2-year-old in the house too. I think that's about all the news you can use about Donny. I don't know how long he is. If I have a chance to measure him before this video goes up, or if we go to the doctor's and she measures him, I will like write that in somewhere, so you guys can know how long he is. He was 20.5 inches at birth, and he's definitely longer now. He looks so much bigger to me now than he did even just a week ago. It's amazing. His eyes, like I said, he's got blonde hair features. His eyes are still a steely blue. I don't think they'll end up being blue. I have brown eyes. Don has greenish eyes. His grandparents have blue eyes. Don's folks have blue eyes. My parents have hazel and green eyes, so it's possible he could have a different color eye, but it's probably likely he'll have brown eyes like mommy, because that's the dominant gene, isn't it? But we'll see. It does seem they do seem a lot lighter than Charlotte's did at this phase. So maybe he'll have hazel eyes. I don't know. We'll have to see. He doesn't really like strikingly resemble anybody in particular in the family just yet. Every day we're like, oh, he looks a lot like Grandpa Blue Blood, and he looks a lot like Grandma Bloody Blue, and he looks a little bit like Uncle Slalala. But we haven't like really pinpointed who he looks like yet, but he's still growing into his features, so we'll see. You know what? He looks like Donny. Okay, now really quickly, because this video is so long and I don't want to keep you guys too long here, I'll just talk a little bit about my postpartum experience. I had 2nd-degree tearing in my delivery, and so I had stitches at 4+ weeks now. Well, it's a month, you know, it's been a month. It's 4+ weeks. It's just starting to feel like I don't feel the stitches anymore. They were very, very sore, I would say, for the first 2 weeks. And sores, you know, they weren't like sharp painful kind of pains, but sore. And then I could just feel them pulling and just really feel them for the past couple of weeks. And just in the past couple of days, it started to feel like maybe they're dissolving. I meant to look. I've been, you know, taking a gander with a mirror once a week just to see how things are healing up, and I meant to look and I didn't do it before this video, but I feel like they're starting to dissolve or have dissolved. We're very close. It still like pulls a bit when I sit on the floor, which I do a lot with my 2-year-old, but much better. I basically couldn't sit my tushy on the floor for like 2 or 3 weeks. I had to like kneel with her on the floor. So that was sore. I didn't need any sort of like major pain medication. I took Motrin while I was in the hospital a little bit, and that's basically all I did. Postpartum bleeding has subsided substantially, although just in the past few days it kicked up a little bit. So I don't know if that's just my uterus having like a final push. I feel like my stomach has gotten so much smaller so quickly this time around, probably because I'm more active and he's feeding a lot, and we're feeding very successfully, because breastfeeding will help contract your uterus. It takes on average about 6 weeks for your uterus to get back to its original size, it's like normal size. So the bleeding for the first 2 weeks was, you know, pretty, well, really for the first week it was kind of like having a heavy period, and then it kind of tapered off pretty quickly, but I still have had to wear a pad every day. I did have cramping for the first week, but nothing really significant. It really wasn't that bad, and that subsided after about a week. And I do get some little cramps now and then, but nothing consistent or major. So I still have to wear a pad. Like I said, the bleeding's kicked up a little bit. I don't think it's my period, although I can't be all too sure. I know it's possible to get your period 4 weeks postpartum. It's totally possible. With Charlotte, I did not start cycling again until she was just shy of a year old. That's how long it took. And it could be totally different per child. But I guess I'll ask my OB when I see her in a couple weeks. I'll have my 6-week postpartum checkup in a couple of weeks. But I'm really not that concerned about it, you know, either way. I don't think it's my period though, because it's not consistent bleeding. It's, you know, on and off, and that's more kind of like the, what's it called, lochia, or I don't know how to pronounce it, whatever they call the postpartum bleeding. So that's been fine. Just mainly the tiredness has been the most difficult part, but in the last week I felt like I've turned a corner. I'm feeling like I have more energy. I'm able to, you know, not just feel so drained all the time, and I've been much more able to kind of juggle both kids. Like I said, Don has been so great and so hands-on with Charlotte, and in the last week we've been experimenting with me, you know, taking on both kids more so he can get back into the office, and he's been working from home and just being on call if I need him. So I think he'll probably go back to the office next week or this week when you're watching this video, because that's been going on. I feel like I'm suddenly in like heavenly lighting here. Anyway, you guys, I apologize for the lighting. So I feel like I'm getting the swing of things. It's taken a full month to feel like I'm really settling into this mom of 2 business, and I know it's gonna be a constant adjustment until the kids are really, you know, much more in a set schedule, which with an infant takes a long time for the schedules to really be in any sort of, you know, pattern that lasts for more than like a month or 2 before they grow out of it and need a different schedule. So I know it'll be a constant adjustment, but I feel like I'm doing okay. It's not too overwhelming. It felt really overwhelming for the first couple of weeks, to be honest, and a lot of that is hormones too, but I feel like I'm coming around and we'll be just fine. And emotionally I've been doing great. I've had a few tough moments, but really they've been very far and few between. A lot of that was just uncertainty about what was troubling Donny before I kind of figured out the whole grunting baby gas, you know, stuff. I'm not really giving him anything. I tried some colic drops in the beginning. They didn't do anything, and I don't like to give anything that doesn't seem to be working to my children, like unnecessarily, you know. So I don't really, I mean, I bicycle his legs. I do the little Buddha sit, you know, the little assisted squat, and that seems to be working just fine. And I just think he's gonna grow out of it as his body gets bigger and his digestive system matures. So a few tough moments, just feeling really overwhelmed about not being able to soothe him and stuff. Those are a very normal part of new motherhood, and you can feel those even with your 2-year-old sometimes, you know. So So really emotionally, I think I'm doing fine. I feel good. I feel very grounded. And I'm just so excited about this new chapter. I'm so excited about having 2 kids and having this, what feels like a complete family unit, and I'm just so in love with this new little one. He's just so precious. I can't believe how big he's getting. Oh my gosh, he's already like a massive baby, and he's still only under 9 pounds, but he feels like so big to me already compared to when he was born. He was just such a little pipsqueak. But yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about. I'm probably leaving something out. I filmed my hospital bag video. That was the first video I filmed actually postpartum, but I've waited to put it up. So I probably look like a disheveled mess in that video. I have not edited the footage, and I'm probably a little bit like harebrained because I filmed that like 2 weeks ago and I haven't posted it yet. But I think I'll probably put that up for you guys in within the next week. And then we'll go from there. I'm not sure how my posting's gonna go. It kind of depends on how things unfold, but I would like to keep current with you guys. If you want to keep seeing updates like this, I will do them for the first 6 months like I did with Charlotte, and then I'll probably stop at that point. I feel very comfortable sharing my babies up until, for their first year, and then I feel like they really come into their own and turn into their own little people, and then I kind of want to give them space. So you see the occasional photo and clip of Charlotte in a vlog here and there, like when we travel or whatever, and I post on Instagram sometimes, but I really like to kind of keep my kids' lives private as much as possible after the 1 year mark, just out of respect for their privacy, because it's not, I don't know. That's just how I feel at the moment. We'll see as, like I said, things unfold, and who knows. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this update. I'm sorry you couldn't really see his face, but I really don't want to bother him. He's sleeping so well today for the first time ever, doing some like real solid daytime naps. So I don't want to bother him, but I hope you enjoyed this. I will pop up some pictures on my blog, and I hope you guys are well. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Bye. Who's your sweet